Everybody, welcome back to another wonderful episode of Profiting from Nonprofits, the podcast that takes you on a deeper dive into the nonprofit world, the wonderful world of nonprofits, where we get to sit down with all sorts of people in the space, from marketers to grant writers to storytellers to fundraisers. You name it, we've done it. We've had them on the show. And today is no exception to the rule. We're sitting down with a wonderful individual. His name is Moshe Hecht. Moshe was one of the original founders of the behemoth crowdfunding platform, Charidy, and is now on to a new venture called Hatch.io, which we'll talk about Hatch in a little bit. But Hatch is changing the way people fundraise, prospect, fundraise, and do development and understanding who and what your donors are doing and how they're doing it, so you can make more money faster. But speaking of making more money faster, this podcast is always sponsored by GiveSuite. GiveSuite is the all-in-one nonprofit management solution for your small and medium-sized organization that gets more things done for you without breaking the bank. From fundraising, marketing, donor management, social media, donor search, and more, GiveSuite is your all-in-one platform to help you leverage your small and medium-sized nonprofit to play to the level of the big boys. If you're looking to learn more about GiveSuite, click the link below. Schedule a strategy call with us to see if this software solution is right for you. And no one cares about me anymore. Let's talk about Moshe. Moshe, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. We've been chasing you for a while.
I'm sorry about that. By the way, just to make a correction, it's hatch.ai.
I thought it was .io. My bad. Everything's .io. Anything AI related is sometimes .io. But you know what? Okay, my fault. I'll put that correct link into the show notes, so anybody who's looking to learn more about Hatch can go in there. Speaking of which, why is it called Hatch?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, first of all, just strictly from a branding perspective, one syllable, 5 letters. I think it's just a great, memorable name. But more poignantly, we're in the business of helping organizations build relationships with their constituents. And in order to do that, the individuals that they're reaching out to and building relationships, they need to be living, breathing people who are alive, as opposed to just a line in their CRM or a ticker on their crowdfunding campaign. We're talking about building relationships with real people. And in order to build relationships with real people, you need to know what they're about. You need to know what they're passionate about. You need to know what their capacity is. And most organizations don't have the information to give them this detailed insight onto their individuals. And what we do at Hatch is we help hatch these individuals from this one dimensional line in their CRM to this living, breathing, ticking human being.
Well, there you go. That makes a lot of sense. So how did you get into this whole world? Because I know originally you were with Charidy. You were one of the founders of Charidy, and you dropped that and started this. So what's the story behind that? How did you guys get into launching a crowdfunding platform that kind of changed the way people saw crowdfunding, and then everyone saw you and copied you, and then the rest is history. So what's the story behind that?
The story behind Hatch started with the founder. His name is Yehuda Gurwitz. He was the original founder of Charidy. Him and I met after Charidy was in private beta. It really just gotten started, and I completely fell in love with the premise of really shifting crowdfunding from being this tool that you could potentially, for nonprofits at least, that you could put an intern on to see if they can raise $20,000 on Giving Tuesday, or as a really, really small part of their budget, to pursuing crowdfunding as a tool that can really, for many organizations, charity campaigns are covering sometimes 80 to 100% of their annual budget. And that really motivated me and inspired me to see we could really use the power of the collective. And I don't just mean little donations. I mean the power of collective as the major donors through the matching component, modest donors through the 24 hours or 48 hours of the campaign, to really make a huge dent for the organization, have them spend a good amount of time preparing for the campaign. So it definitely takes a few weeks to prepare an effective crowdfunding campaign, but then free up the rest of the year to focus on their mission. So to me, that really spoke to me. So we had a great early team that was very passionate about helping nonprofits raise more money from more people in a shorter amount of time. And I think some of the features that we introduced were nothing short of revolutionary, that really spoke to what motivates a donor. What really motivates someone to open up their wallet and give money to an organization? And those were features like the urgency factor, the social factor, the impact factor, that their money is visually, being doubled, tripled, quadrupled in real time. So when you put all those emotional triggers in place, it really was, it moved the needle for the entire nonprofit space. And as like you mentioned, right now, it's become very common, and we've, helped build a lot of competitors. And that's great, because now for thousands of organizations, it's par for the course. It's a standard way for them to fundraise today.
No, for sure. And I find that with crowdfunding platforms, a lot of them have kind of become the Kleenex or the stand like in of the industry. And so a lot of them find like there's not really much innovation going on with them. And my experience with it, at least, is that, there's a lot going on and they're trying to do a lot of volume, and they sometimes forget like what the organization's really, what the goals are. And that was something that kind of ticked me off a little bit about like these crowdfunding companies, where people like, it's kind of like ingrained in their strategy. We're going to do a charity campaign, or we're going to do a cause match campaign, or whatever, or GoFundMe, or like whatever. And there's so many different platforms out there, but I feel like a lot of these platforms have gone like from let's help people and do it like the right way, to let's not to like turning out volume. Do you feel that that's what happened in the space?
Well, that's a good segue to why I started Hatch. Um, I mean, the answer is yes, but I'll be a little bit more nuanced of what I saw really going on. It's 10 years ago, to tell an organization that they were able to raise $1 million, $2 million, $3 million in such a short amount of time, they wouldn't have believed you. This movement of crowdfunding, I call it high impact crowdfunding, because this movement of high impact crowdfunding, which Charidy really revolutionized, made a huge shift. And when things are successful, they become commoditized. They become, and then some of the real science behind it, or the real attention to detail, starts to kind of fall to the wayside. And then it just becomes, a very rote system that you do year over year. And I think that the biggest sort of, I would say, maybe downfall of this is that while we started to be able to empower organizations to raise tons of money, small amounts of money from tons of people, what happened is, over time, because this became so popular and what's the word? It became so common, common practice, is that a lot of these organizations started to lose touch on what's the most important thing for an organization, which is building relationships, right? So if you have a precedence, last year, you're able to send out a link and raise X amount of money from 1,000 people, you start to see a lot of these people as ATM machines.
Yes.
And yes.
I'll chime in afterwards, but go on.
Yeah. So I saw this happening over the last few years. And the big question to me was, how can we bring the love back in? How can we bring the core of what fundraising is, which is essentially building relationships with people and helping them get closer to their passions and helping them make the greater impact. And while I don't think high impact crowdfunding should stop, I think it's an incredible engine for income. We have to do more in terms of, I always communicate with this person once a year by sending them a link. What are you doing in between those?
Yes.
Yes. So what do you do? What do you do in between those 11 months between the crowdfunding campaigns? And that's how Hatch was born. And what we discovered is that now that organizations are sitting on these huge mailing lists, huge email lists, huge phone lists, huge mailing lists from all these successful campaigns, what that's led to is them, now they have huge lists, but they're ignoring 90% of those people throughout the year. So, and I asked myself, like, what would it take? What would it take to empower organizations to now engage with these massive lists of organizations? And I found that the single greatest challenge to them of stop ignoring these people throughout the year is, well, they don't really have enough information on these individuals to build relationships with. They don't know what they're passionate about. They don't know what they're skilled in, interested in. They don't really know those life cycles of events where those would be opportunities for them to wish them a happy birthday, celebrate something in their life, celebrate their new job. So what we discovered with Hatch is if we can give organizations at scale more information about their constituents, right? What are they passionate about? What does their social footprint look like? What is their actual giving capacity? So they might have given you $18 in the campaign, but they can give you 18,000. Or maybe they've given you 18,000 and right now, unfortunately, they've lost their job and you shouldn't be asking for an $18,000 gift. Maybe you should go to an $18 gift, at least just for this year. So really getting the download on these individuals. And we imagine that if we can give them all this information, which is publicly available, into one single location, and to create what we call a complete human profile, for them to be able to visualize these people again, like human beings, like people. It's hard to build one-on-one relationships with that many people, but if we can give you all that information at scale, what Hatch does now is it gives you these opportunities to connect with these individuals based on their lifestyle, based on what's happening in their life, based on their skills, their capacity, their propensity to give to your organization, their interests. And it's allowing organizations now to get back to brass tacks, back to key principles, build relationships, be there for these individuals in their lives and what's important to them. And then ultimately, when it comes for you to ask, they'll be there for you.
Well, you just said so many things that this is my entire philosophy on this. And this is one of my, like I said, with the crowdfunding platforms, they're great. The crowdfunding campaigns are great, but everyone forgets what happens after the campaign. Like the entire thing that we do in our agency, and one of the things that we built into GiveSuite is this whole post campaign situation where I've seen when people hire us to do campaigns for them, post campaign sequences bring in a ton of money because you're already putting them on that follow-up trip. You're already thanking them, you're talking to them about what's going on, you're really connecting with them, and they give more money because not only they're on a high already, but they see that you actually care about them. And my entire philosophy, one of the things I like that really does bother me about these platforms and these things and like these campaigns is no one realizes that fundraising and marketing go hand in hand. And if you're not doing good marketing and you're not doing good follow-up throughout the year and you're not doing anything, you just think, oh, I just made $1 million and I don't have to talk to these people. Come time for the campaign, no one gives a crap about you. Like, who are you and why should I give you money? And so what you're doing with Hatch and what we've done, we actually have a partnership with Donor Search. So I'm sure you're familiar with Donor Search in some regard. And we're doing the same thing, is that we're giving smaller organizations who are using our platform the ability to do that, to be able to connect on a different level with their constituents, with their prospects, so that way they know how to do the ask right and how to tool their marketing campaigns to be able to speak to them. Because the way you speak to an 18,000 a major gift giver is different than the way you speak to an $18 giver. You're not going to come at them with the same approach. And so when you have that information, when you're armed with those resources, you don't look like an idiot and you're able to come and be able to get the money you need. And that's why, like, when people don't realize that marketing and fundraising go hand in hand. If you don't have that component down, your $1 million campaigns can flop. I've seen big campaigns flop because they couldn't get over the fence because they maxed out on the people, and they have a whole chunk of people that they tried to ask for, but no one cares.
Yeah.
No, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And that's what I'm saying. Like people, but I think it's all about the education. Like a lot of these people who are doing these type of campaigns, they listen to what the coaches tell them. They listen to, and these guys aren't marketers. They're not fundraisers. They know one thing. They know what's in their lane, but they don't understand the bigger picture. And when you go with someone who's actually a fundraising consultant, who's actually who actually understands the space, you see the bigger picture and you're able to think long term and not just 24 hours.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's crazy. So with Hatch, what type of organizations are using you? What type of organizations are connected to you, and what are the results that they've seen?
Yeah. So we have a wide variety of organizations using us, from local small day schools to global organizations. Volunteers of America is one of them. They have 32 chapters across the United States. The results have been great. I mean, we're still a young platform, so we're still getting a lot of feedback from our customers in terms of new features. We're definitely iterating a lot based on customer feedback. But I think what we're seeing is a shift. We're seeing a shift from CRM being the only place, this is not a bash at GiveSuite, and I know that from our conversations, you're solving for a lot of these things. But I think a lot of organizations out there are thinking that, like, okay, our donors come in, they go into to a CRM system, and that's it. I've done my job. What Hatch is doing is it integrates with the CRM. So you need to have an integration with the CRM where you do an export from the CRM system. Is that it's creating a world where the information of their individuals are being updated in real time. So when you put your individual into Hatch, it's not just like we just enrich them with this third-party information once. It's literally being enriched on a day-to-day basis. So we have, for example, live tweets and news is being updated on a daily basis. Their job history and their careers is being updated on a quarterly basis. You have things like giving to foundations and giving to annual reports. Yes, that's annual, but it's a shift from looking at your individuals as in just the 7, 8, 10 data points that you get with the CRM system to over 80 data points of a living, breathing, growing individual person.
That's awesome.
Yeah, one of the features that we have is called Hatch Live, which is literally a social. It's almost like a social media feed of just the individuals in your database. So it'll show whose birthdays are this week on this feed. It'll show who was featured in the news this week, right? Who's tweeted today, right? So if you're anywhere from the CEO to a marketer to a prospect researcher to a fundraiser, to get this real-time feed on the lives of your community right now, it's a complete game changer. So it's a shift. It's a discipline shift of the organizations, because they've never even imagined that this was possible, that they'd be able to see the evolution of their individuals in their database growing day after day after day. And it's a bit of a discipline that they need to say, okay, well, we got to start sending more birthday messages. We got to start celebrating when they're in the news. We got to start liking and sharing their tweets. We got to start, congratulating them when they change a job. It's a shift. It's a discipline shift. So it takes more work out of the organization to be more involved. But ultimately, like you said, when you come to ask for that individual, when it comes for them to be there for you, and there's a lot of competition today with nonprofits. The other day, I did a Ask Me Anything on Instagram, and an organization asked, like, how do I grab, with so many organizations competing, how do I grab the attention of the organization? And I answered and said, instead of thinking about how you could grab so much attention for yourself, what about giving attention to the individuals?
Yep. Oh,
and if you're the organization that's giving them attention consistently, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, who do you think they're going to choose when that link comes to them?
Exactly. That's what I preach, is be top of mind, stay top of mind, and you'll get the cheddar. You're going to win, because if you the way you raise your hand higher than everybody else in this game is always be top of mind, is always be talking to them, constantly talking to them, constantly following up, being in front of them, whether it's in their inbox, whether it's in their phone, whether it's on social, whatever. Just constantly be there and create content. This is why, like I said, marketing and fundraising go hand in hand, because if you're not creating content that resonates with your constituents, with your donors, and showing them what you're doing, showing them how their money's working, then they're not going to come to you. One of my favorite things to do, and we just started doing this, everyone's talking about UGC, user generated content. I'm just like, that's like old news, bro, in the content world. Like it's just putting a new hat on something. And one of the things I've been doing a lot with some of our clients is, on the agency side, is getting their donors and getting their volunteers to create videos and say why they volunteered, why they gave money to this organization. We're doing this one right now specifically with this farm in southern Israel that's been a client since the war started. And we're using this as a fundraising grab because they had a whole ton of volunteers come down and pick all the vegetables that were dying, fix the crops and everything like that. And we're getting them to send videos why you came to volunteer at our farm versus all the other ones that were closer to like normal. Like these
Yeah.
guys are literally 8 kilometers from the Gaza border. Their backyard is Egypt. Like,
Yeah.
you've gone to the no to the bottom of the barrel. If anybody wants to learn more about this fundraiser, I'm going to put a link in the show notes as well. But the point is that we're getting these guys to create videos, the donors too, like why they gave to this fundraiser out of all the other causes that are going to Israel. And because people connect, and when you show people, people buy from people, people give to people. People don't give to companies. People don't give to buy from companies. They buy from people. And this is why the whole like user generated content influencer thing is coming around. Well, influencers is another conversation, but whatever. And that's the whole thing with nonprofits. That's how you win in fundraising. That's how you get the money. And I'm sure you've seen this over your career. Is it people?
Sure.
This is why peer-to-peer campaigns work, because people buy from people.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned something about the importance of always being top of mind with your donors, your constituents, your members of your organization. That's a good start to always being top of mind. The challenge with always being top of mind is, how many emails can you send to the same people, and then consistently pushing out content without doing proper segmentation
Right.
is that results in a lot of unsubscribes, and it results in a lot of white noise. You become the organization. Bad organizations don't communicate with their constituents. Good organizations are constantly pushing out content. Great organizations are segmenting
Correct.
their individuals into what content is relevant and surgical to this individual, specific content to specific lifestyles of these individuals, and how often and when to send it. One of the 100%. Things that, one of the features that that we provide at Hatch is you're able to identify over 30 different filters that can segment and combinations. So it really comes into hundreds of combinations based on certain lifestyles. So for example, if I'm an organization and we're doing a rooftop dine and wine for real estate people in New York City, right? That's a very specific type of event. That's pretty common for nonprofits in New York City to have, a rooftop event for almost like a certain age demographic, with a specific type of, whether it's wine and dine, whether it's a specific speaker for a specific demographic. So before Hatch, or before a similar tool to Hatch, an organization would basically say, okay, we have 10,000 people on our email list. The only way of getting to the people who are going to sign up is send the same email to all those 10,000 people. What we've done in Hatch is we've allowed them to actually, with just a few clicks, they can actually filter from their 10,000 people who live in New York, people who are millennials, let's say if that's the generation, or people who work in real estate or skilled and interested in type of real estate. And maybe even you can go even further into people who are foodies. You can find all of those filters. It's really simple. You can find all those filters, and you narrow down 10,000 people, and you probably get, let's say, 300 people that fit that criteria, right? So it's a small percentage of those individuals. But now that I have this list of 300 people, those are the ones that I'm going to be sending several emails to. Right. Those are the ones that I might even put a volunteer to call each one of those individually and say, hey, we know you're into real estate. We know you live in New York. We know you love wine and cheese, or whatever that is. Would you consider, or we know that you're connected. We also have social graphs where you can see they're connected. We know you're connected to this person. We think this would be a great event for them. That one phone call is worth it because you have a segmented, targeted list too. Now, you might want to send one email to the entire list because you might miss someone in that segment. But when you think about the follow through, the follow up, the multiple communications, you want to make sure you're sending it to a targeted list. And you're going to see, and this is what some of our organizations are already reporting, is that their unsubscribes rate is dropping because they're sending relevant content to relevant individuals. And I think that's a big shift that organizations need to start moving into. Nike's doing it. They're not sending, they probably have millions of emails, but they're not sending every email to every individual. They gathered the data. They know that this, if they have a white shoe that's under $99, right? And that's like a specific running shoe. They're sending it to people who have a history of buying white shoes, have a history of spending under $99, and have some kind of signal to say that they love running versus they love basketball. And they're sending it to that particular segmentation. Nonprofits need to start moving into this habit of, you have a big list, but don't abuse
Yep.
the list.
No, for
Segment the
sure.
list.
That's something that we do a lot too, because we do a lot of email. And when you segment your lists and you send and you tag, it's also about tagging, creating
Yeah.
proper tags when people come in, so you see where they came from, how they came, and see the whole customer journey. Then you're able to send out smarter campaigns to them and know that these people are going to be receptive. We're doing this now actually with another campaign we're running, another fundraiser. This guy's running, he's running a massive campaign and several micro campaigns within it. And we're going to start running email drips to people who gave to specific campaigns, and then talk to them about, hey, you gave to this campaign, you check out this, maybe this one might be pique your interest too, because it's all about donating money to Israeli soldiers. It's a huge campaign. I will drop a link to that one too. I'm not, this is, first of all, just giving a disclaimer. This is not a promotion for Hatch. It's not a promotion for any of our fundraisers, but it's all context and real time content that we're talking about. So just giving you all a heads up. And you guys know me. I'm not here. I don't promote. I'm here for the conversation. But no, so when you segment, but that's, yeah, exactly. When you segment your stuff out, and you're able to, not only you will see higher open rates, you'll see higher click rates, because you're putting a direct message to people who have relevancy. And this is also why I love email too, is because email is the only platform on the planet that's not going to screw you. Because at some point somewhere somebody opted in to be part of your list, so they have a vested interest in being there. And if you play your cards right, they'll stick around for a while. So that's why proper segmentation, proper audience segmentation is really key. And knowing your data and knowing your people and having those signals that's there, you'll be able to sell more. I mean, this is one of the things that I love about Google Performance Max ads, like PMax ads, when you're running paid ads, is that PMax ads pretty much do that too, on a visual level, where they'll see what you're, what you went to put a pair of pants, shoes, and a shirt in the cart. Life happens, you leave your abandoned cart. So the PMax ads are going to send you that, show you those specific items with that data signal, because they saw that you put those in the cart. So you have a higher chance of buying those items versus standard retargeting ads, where you're going to be putting, a banner that says shop now, come back 50% off, because people tune those out. So it's the same thing with any type of segmentation, is that you're going to have a higher conversion rate. This is really, dude, this is like major stuff here, what you're doing in the industry. So how does it feel to like be a disturber, be a disruptor, and piss people off?
I hope I'm not pissing too many people off.
Nah, you're disrupting a market. You're always going to upset somebody.
It feels great. I feel honestly very blessed that I've been able to, not compromise on my two biggest passions, which is doing good and doing well. And I feel like, a lot of entrepreneurs are afraid of this space, of the nonprofit space. It's literally in the word nonprofit. So it's kind of scary, and there are, certain buying habits which are uncommon in the business space that you have within the nonprofit world. But it's a massive market. There's over 1.6 million nonprofits just in the United States alone. I look at how much we're raising, $500 billion. Seems like a lot of money, but it's really, based on some of my research, it's really less than 20% of the actual need that's out there when it comes. You think about hunger and education and all the different needs that nonprofits are servicing. We've only really scratched the surface in terms of actually solving these problems. So being in a seat and having an opportunity to move the needle, to take currently $500 billion and trying to move that to 550 to 600 to 650 to 700, and knowing what kind of an impact that's going to have in the world, and also, God willing, building a successful company around that mission. I feel blessed.
Oh, that's awesome, and you should, because again, people get scared of being in nonprofits. I love being in this space because, as I've seen and I've proven, nonprofits, if they believe in, if you sell it to them right, there's always money there. It's just a matter of how you sell it to them. And because
Yeah.
there's always someone who's going to pay for it. That's why the show is called Profiting Nonprofits, because if you run your organization like a business and you have that business head instead of running it like a passion, then you're going to
Yeah.
be very, very successful. And I've had people come to me for consulting, be like, I want to start a nonprofit. How much money do you think I can make? I'm like, I am not taking this call with you, because if that's what your thought process is, how much money can I make, then you're coming at this all wrong. But
Yeah.
no, it's very smart what you're doing, very amazing what you're doing. Before we pop off and end this episode, what advice would you give somebody who's looking to start a crowdfunding campaign, who's never done one before for their organization? And what advice would you give somebody who's looking to level up their organization, in terms of taking their fundraising to the next dimension with tools like Hatch and Donor Search and other like these type of tools? How
Yeah.
would you, what would strategy, what plays would
Yeah.
you?
Well, I mean, there's a lot to it, but I would say the first thing that comes to mind in terms of to answer your first question about what advice I would give to someone who, let's say, is running an organization, they've been around for a few years, they have a decent database, and they're like, okay, we need to move into this world of crowdfunding. I would say that when you look about, the typical 80-20 divide of, like, major donors versus the crowd or the modest givers, we tend to think it's either or, right? So if I'm an organization that's been around and I have like 5-10 big givers or 50-100 big givers, if I'm raising my money that I need to do, which is never usually the case, but let's say you are, right? I would say to them, that's like, we're moving into an era where even your major donors are no longer looking at presentations or websites or numbers or graphs to get the confirmation that your cause is a viable cause. They're looking at the collective vote of your organization to say that this is the right organization, this is a viable organization, these are the right people running it. And the best way to get the vote of the community, not through surveys, but will they separate with their hard-earned money? So as we move into a future where the power of the collective vote, not even the money so much, right? We just heard the news that Kamala Harris raised, $100 million
Mm-hmm.
in 2 days. I'm not getting political. We're not going there. But what I will say is that is an incredible vote of confidence, because those people who are giving those dollars, those people are going to vote for her. If I gave $5 to Kamala, I want to cash that in by voting for her to become president. So when you move into an era of getting small amounts of money from a lot of people, it's not just the money that you're raising from these people, it's bringing proof of concept, collective intelligence to your major donors, to your major supporters, to your anchor supporters, that this is an organization that's needed, wanted, and that people are going to vote for it with their dollar, because there's no better representation of somebody's vote than when they give you their money. So
Social
it's
proof.
no longer a nice to have. It's becoming a critical component, not only for the money that you're going to raise from the crowd, but from the intelligence and from the vote of confidence that you're going to bring to your major donors. So I can't imagine any organization that doesn't have to do crowdfunding on some level to move into the future. In terms of more on the Hatch side of things, now I would say that data is scary. It's just a scary word, and I would say is that you don't have to be a data scientist to benefit and to leverage data. Data is just individual characteristics of an individual. When people say data, what are we talking about? We're talking about passions, emotions, desires, interests, right? These data points, when you put them all together, you're not just creating a bunch of individual pieces of data. This is not a math equation. This is building a character. This is building an individual to get to know this person more, right? So who doesn't want to do that? Who doesn't want to get to know their constituents better? Because that will transcend how they market, how they bring people into events, how they raise funds, how they engage, how they cultivate. The more you know about these individuals, we have a slogan in Hatch. We help you. I'm forgetting my own slogan. Hatch teaches you what makes your donors tick, click, and give. So if you're afraid of data, AI, of all these new innovations, just breathe, Or all this information is doing is helping you to learn more about what makes your constituents tick clicking it. And with that information, you become a very powerful entity. You become very powerful. You get predictive power as an individual, because with all this information that you can gather of their history, of what they're doing, that helps predict, and that helps give you understand what opportunities they're most likely to engage with in the future.
Amazing. Amazing, amazing. Moshe, this was an absolutely awesome episode. And I really learned a lot about what you're doing. And like I said, it's all about the marketing and the fundraising going hand in hand with each other. And if you know who your people are, if you know that's like my entire method in marketing: funnel, offer, follow up, and frequency. I have a good funnel, have a good offer, follow up with people and know your audience. And if you don't know your audience, if you don't know the people you're trying to communicate with, you're going to flop. And so I love what you're doing. I think it's amazing. I think it's a fantastic tool for all organizations out there. And if anybody wants to get in touch with Moshe, I'm going to drop the information for Hatch in the show notes. This was not a product plug, but this was a just fantastic episode, because this is something that as nonprofits you guys should be looking towards for the future, and really trying to become more adaptive in the way you're doing your fundraising. And I feel like a lot of organizations are still stuck in the old ways of fundraising and the old ways of doing things, because they're so bogged down and people don't like change, you know. But at the end of the day, this is working smarter and not harder, and being more adaptive and understanding who your people are before you even get on the phone with them is going to be a game changer. So, Moshe, thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode. And guys, don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast on all major podcasting platforms. Check out our YouTube channel, The Nonprofit Academy. This episode is going to be up there shortly. And until the next upload, I will catch y'all later.
Thank you, Sean.